Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Big Questions, Small Steps. My name is Amanda and I'm glad that you could join me today. So in my previous episode, we talked about, we looked at Christianity and the sacraments that they do to help them feel more connected with Jesus. We looked at the rituals in Judaism because they don't have sacraments. The rituals tied them to their ancestors and made their experiences more meaningful. So today we're going to look at the other Abrahamic faith, and that's Islam. So Islam doesn't have sacraments, and Islam doesn't really have rituals either. They have what they call 5 pillars of Islam, or the 5 most important things in Islam. And they believe if you do all these 5 things, then as a result, you'll be a good person and you will gain entrance into paradise, or their version of heaven. They call it paradise. So in Islam, they view that faith and actions are inseparable. So they feel that to be a Muslim, and a good Muslim at that, you will see it. So they are very purposeful in what they are. So let's go through the 5 pillars so we have a little bit better understanding of them, okay? The first one is words of testimony. This is the most decisive act of a believer in Islam. This is when they profess their faith in God and their faith in Muhammad as God's messenger. They do this on a rather frequent basis, but in particular, this pillar is extremely important when someone chooses to convert to Islam. So it's a big deal for them. The second pillar is of prayer. Now, if you know anything about Muslims or Islamic faith or Muslim people, things like that, you'll know that prayer is very important to them. They have a tendency to pray at 5 different times of the day, and it's very specific, and it is across the whole world that they pray at these particular times. So it is at sunrise, at noon, at mid-afternoon, at sunset, and in the evening. So there are 5 times they pray throughout the day. And the reason they pray so frequently is because every time they pray, it's kind of like they're admitting or confessing that they fell short. They are making mistakes and they are going to try to do better. It's kind of like a reset every time. So when someone who practices Islam is going to pray, they will typically have a separate location to pray, away from everyone else who can be distracting. They will have a mat that they pray on, because when they pray, they do something standing and then they'll bow and then they'll like go on the ground and I don't exactly know why they do the different movements, but they have different movements that they do when they pray. I can research more about that and share that with you a different time. So they have a mat, they have different movements that they do during prayer. Before they even get the mat out, every time they pray, they have to do a ritual cleaning, just with fresh water. Doesn't have to be any special water or anything, but they have to be ritually cleaned every single time they pray. So washing their hands, washing their face. Yes, it is very important to them, cleanliness and hygiene. And then when they're praying, they ensure that they are modestly dressed. So for females, they wouldn't show their collarbone, they wouldn't show their arms, things like that. For males, they will wear a shirt when they are praying. They dress modestly most of the time anyways, but when they're praying, they ensure that they are modestly dressed as well. So if just imagine if you were in a Muslim household, if it is early in the morning at sunrise and you're getting up just to start your day, you couldn't necessarily do your prayers in your pajamas. They're probably not modest enough for that. So they would change, wash up, change, pray, and then they would go and get ready for their day. So prayer is the most visible act of being a Muslim. Most times people will realize that they are Muslim because they are praying so frequently. And there's even, if you live close to a mosque, there is kind of like an announcement that goes out on the loudspeaker to signal that it's time to pray. And then when they are praying, they always angle towards Mecca, which is a very important city for that faith. And it's over in the Middle East. I believe it's in Saudi Arabia, but I could be mistaken on that. So they angle their mats toward Mecca. They pray towards Mecca because that's what they believe is the house of God, is in Mecca. So that's what they do. Praying 5 times a day, ritual cleaning. Prayers are important for people of Islam, and hygiene is very important for people of Islam. So that's pillar number 2. So pillar number 3 is particularly important during the month of Ramadan. Not sure if you've ever heard of Ramadan before. It is one of the months in the Islamic calendar, the Islamic faith. During that month, they fast. No eating, no drinking, no sexual relations, nothing really fun during daylight hours. They can eat, they can drink, they can do fun things during the evening hours, but during the day, they do not. And this is for a reason. It's for a whole month, by the way, not just 1 or 2 days. It's a whole month. And I can only imagine how meaningful it must be, but how much I would also dread the idea of Ramadan coming up, because that's a lot. That's a lot. So they fast, however, for 2 different reasons. One, to renew their awareness and their gratitude for what they have been given. So, good reason. And 2, to remind them of their religious duty to help others in need. Again, very good reasons. Very good reasons, but that's still, it's tough. I can't imagine not being able to even have water during the day, because I'm a teacher and I talk a lot, and there are exceptions if you are pregnant, or if you're nursing, or if you're elderly, or if your menstrual cycle comes. All of those would allow you to break your fast, but otherwise, yeah, for an entire month, no eating, drinking, participating in fun things during daylight hours for the entire month of Ramadan. Okay, number 4 is almsgiving, or basically giving to the poor. They frequently have a fixed amount that will come out of their income, and they donate that to help build mosques or help community members that may be in need, or they might have specific donations or interest areas that they will participate and support in. The people of the Islamic faith try to be very community focused and helping each other, and that's a pretty awesome thing. It absolutely is. And then number 5 is very specific for Islam. It's a pilgrimage. They believe that at some time in your life, if you at all can physically and financially, there are those 2 exemptions, but you should go and visit the house of God, which is called Kaaba, and that's in Mecca, and they are supposed to go there sometime in their lifetime. So the people of the Islamic faith believe that those 5 things need to occur in their lifetime in order to go to paradise. Now, by contrast, there are some things that people who are practicing the faith of Islam have in similarity with Judaism. Okay? So some of the things that they have are, the people of Islam also have circumcisions. So in the Jewish faith, they circumcise the baby boys to help them experience that sign and contract, covenant, that's the right word I was looking for, with God, that they are their chosen people, things like that. In Islam, they do the circumcision more out of a hygiene aspect. Again, they're very much into hygiene. It's not necessarily tied to, well, this person had a circumcision, so I need to have a circumcision. It's really more towards hygiene. But there is a special blessing and a special service that happens when the baby gets circumcised. They're also very particular about what foods they eat. Now, sometimes, if you remember back to the Judaism video, there are foods that are kosher or approved that they can eat. And in Islam, they can eat many of those foods, but not all. So Islam follows a different set of rules, and they look for foods that are halal. So they have to have certain ingredients or certain ingredients not included. And if it's meat or chicken or things like that, they have to be prepared in a very humane way. They will not eat meat if the animals were mistreated or if the animals had blemishes on them, things like that. But they will eat beef, for example, as long as it's processed the correct way. They will not eat pork, similar to Judaism, and they will not consume alcohol. They will not. That is against their rules. Now, of course, there's going to be exceptions, and everyone can have different choices. But as a whole, they do not do alcohol and they do not do pork. Okay? In Islam, a man can have up to 4 wives, as long as he can provide for all 4 wives. And the wives don't necessarily have any say on if that man has more wives or less wives. The man has a lot of the power. The woman can try to get a divorce, but it will be very difficult, very difficult. However, on the flip side, if a man says the words, "I divorce you," 3 times, a divorce is granted. So it just shows how the power is very much on the male side. And the household in general follows the father's faith. So typically you have to be both of the Islamic faith in order to marry. A woman can have children with people who are not from Islam. However, they would not be Islamic faith seekers and participants then, because in Islam, the faith follows the father. So by contrast, in Judaism, if the mother is Jewish, the children are Jewish. In Islam, if the father is Islamic or Muslim, then the children are all Muslim. So that's just how they're different. But many similarities, many differences. It is interesting to see between Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, there is a very strong connection through all 3 regarding prayer, and that they all mean something to each group. But Christians don't see prayer as a sacrament. They have different things that they do for that. Fasting is something that all 3 groups will participate in for different meanings and to bring more awareness for different periods of time. Pilgrimage, there's not necessarily any place to go. In Christianity, frequently they will go and visit Bethlehem, and they will go and visit Nazareth and things like that, things that they view as important in Jesus's timeline. In Judaism, sometimes they will pilgrimage to Israel as their home country. So every place has a certain basic, but it's not necessarily a rule or an expectation in the other religions. So definitely interesting things. I hope you learned something, and I hope you'll join me next time. Bye-bye.